Hello everyone, this is Bentley, and today I want to talk about a semi-philosophical topic, but also something that is, I think, the most important skill for all of us aquarists to learn and execute. The difference between having a lush, planted tank, healthy fish, beautiful aquascapes, often all comes down to one very important skill. And in the past, I've talked about all sorts of things. I've had guides on understanding substrate. I've had guides on understanding fertilizer. We've talked about certain fish species. We've talked about light. We've talked about water and how important it is to understand your own water. But all of those don't matter if you don't eventually master this skill. And I say eventually because often it's beginners that are better at this skill than some of us more experts. That skill is very simple. Patience. I know, you're like, Bentley, you spent like close to a minute and a half babbling on, and then you're going to hit us with patience? Yeah, patience. I am no stranger to getting a little too excited and going a little too fast-paced. It's part of my career, it's part of my job, and at times it's been something I've done in my aquariums. For those who have been around for a while but maybe haven't, I used to have a pretty good-sized colony of zebra pleco adults, and I lost them because I wasn't patient enough. That video will be up in the corner if you're interested. I think it has a good lesson in there. A lesson that I've learned the hard way, which is that even if you get the best advice, you can have something that you're just so excited for. I had adult zebra plecos. I know I had females. I know I had males. I had one big fat female. She was at mature age. I really, really, really wanted to just get that first spawn so that I knew I could do it. So I asked a few friends and I took some advice, and what I should have done was just let nature take its course. Kept good water quality, done my water changes in the regularity I was doing, and not worried about trying to alter things. I was too excited for that first group of babies. And I did the right combination of wrong things and lost my fish. I wasn't patient enough. When I first got into this hobby, or got back into this hobby, more accurate, I had my fluval flex that you guys always see behind me in my live streams, and I put all these plants in it. I had some rocks. I was trying to do my first aquascape, which I'm terrible at. But for a beginner and a little tank, it looked good to me. And I was excited. I was going to go get fish. So I'm going to get cardinal tetras, right? I love cardinal tetras. I love blue. I love that stripe of red on them. It's going to be perfect. I'm going to have this beautiful planted tank. I'm going to have these beautiful tetras. And I lost them because I did things too fast. I lost the plants too because I didn't give them enough time to convert. And I saw leaves falling off and I thought my plants were dying. I'm doing something wrong. And I trimmed them and I removed them way before I should have. I should have just given them more time, but I didn't know. I didn't know I needed to do that. And that's where a lot of the beginners make mistakes. And it was because of some of the mistakes I made in that tank. When the retirement tank was in the process of being set up, I gave it months. That tank didn't have fish in it for like 4 months. I planned it. I slowly picked up all the things I needed. I put all the substrate in. I driftwood and rock and plants. And I just let it run for several months. There were some snails that came in on some plants. We had some snails living in there. But I waited. And even though my tests said, there's no ammonia, no nitrite, I waited. Because I made mistakes and I learned from those mistakes. And then eventually I started adding my fish, and I added them slowly. I took my time. I made sure to be patient so that it could be the beautiful tank I had dreamed of. But then as I got more experience, I became a more savvy aquarist, I started rushing again. I would put up multiple tanks all at once because I needed some of these fish and some of that fish. So I'm too excited. I don't want to wait. I wasn't being patient anymore. And that led to problems, whether it was some struggles with some algae or struggles with certain plants or certain fish that I just never had any success with. I went too fast. I wasn't patient enough. Eventually, it came to the zebra plecos, and I think that's the one that hit the hardest. That was the one where I should have known better. Why didn't I just wait? And I think that's an important lesson for all of us, is that this hobby, patience truly is a virtue. The difference between waiting a week and waiting a month to let your filtration have its time to go through the nitrogen cycle, to let the initial bombardment of like diatom algae and things like that occur before you then start looking at your fish, or adding that next thing, or before you start going crazy with medications and things like that. Having a little bit of patience can go a long way. The more patient we are, the more likely we are to provide a better environment for our fish, because we go slow and cautious. And it's hard. Don't get me wrong. I go into a fish store, or man, Dan's Fish is like one of the worst temptations known to man sometimes, you know? And there's other places too that some of the other like hobbyists who have their own sites, and I check in every once in a while to see what they've got, or like redfish, bluefish. My buddy Jason, right? He'll get in some really, really cool stuff, especially with Apistos. And like, I'm not a big Apisto person, but every once in a while I see some of the stuff he brings in, and I'm like, I could be an Apisto guy. I could be an Apisto guy. But then I realize that I need to be more patient. I need to wait until the time is right. It's not about getting that fish right now. It's about providing the best possible environment, waiting for the time to be right to get that fish, or maybe even get those plants, whatever it may be, that next tank. You know, I've had a number of emails from folks who watch my channel where it's like, hey, Bentley, I just ordered these fish. They're going to be here tomorrow. Is it okay if I do X? And almost every time the first thought in my head is, you got some risk here. We're trying to rush too much. And I usually say that mostly because I've made those mistakes, and I know the catastrophic potentiality, the horrible things that can go wrong if we're not patient enough. Because I've been the dummy who wasn't patient enough, and I have felt the horrific heartache that is losing something you really, really wanted to go right, and to be able to keep for a long time and be able to say, yeah, I'm doing that right. And I learned all by myself, or whatever it may be, or like whatever your goals are as an aquarist, exercise patience and you will get to them. We don't need to rush into these things. We are creating ecosystems in small glass or acrylic boxes. Nature took thousands of years to figure these things out. I think we can afford to take a few months and be a little more patient when we set up that next fish tank, when we wait to get that next fish that we're interested in, to make sure that we have everything we can possibly do right, so that that fish lives its best life in our care. And maybe, just maybe, we'll be fortunate enough for that fish to breed and give us babies and experience all the magic and joy that is baby fish of all kinds. Patience. It is the most important and hardest thing to master in this hobby. And I hope that a video like this speaks to you and helps you realize, I can wait a little bit longer. I'm going to do this right. I'm going to make sure that this is a success. If you enjoyed this video, if you appreciate little kind of philosophical talks like this every once in a while, let me know in the comments down below. Give it a little like, all the usual YouTube things. It's the best way to help out your favorite small YouTube channel, and it's free. Doesn't cost money, just a little interaction, and that's what helps us. Now, if you don't like this video, because you're like, Bentley, why didn't you at least give me some sweet B-roll? It's like you're traveling out to across the country to a convention in like 2 days, and you don't have very much time. You can hit thumbs down twice. I'll understand. And for those of you who are new, maybe this is your first video. Like I said in the start, I've got all sorts of guides, tips, tricks, all sorts of stuff like that. Consider subscribing, maybe even ring that little notification bell so that you don't miss out on the future ones that come after this. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome.